Alaikum friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about epidemiologic terms, but prior to that we will know what is a communicable infection, and then we will look at the epidemiologic terms, which are epidemic, endemic and pandemic. Have a cup of tea and let's get started. Epidemiology. It is the study and analysis of health and disease conditions in a defined population. Don't get confused with the word defined and population. You'll get to know why I've said so in a moment. And the epidemiologic terms are endemic, epidemic, and pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, that prior to talking about the epidemiologic terms, we should know what is a communicable infection. Communicable infection is an infection that spreads from host to hosts, means from one person to another person. Just as in this picture, infection is spreading from this person to this one and from this one to this person. Don't confuse that infection with the spread of infection from animal to human. It is a communicable infection if it spreads from animal to human, but there's a specific term used for that, and this is called zoonotic infections. Many, but not all infections are communicable. For example, tuberculosis is one of the communicable infections because it spreads from one person to another via airborne droplets produced by coughing. But botulism is not a communicable infection because the exotoxin produced by this organism in the contaminated food affects only those eating that food. If a disease is highly communicable, there's a specific term used for it, and this is called contagious. Lecture outline. We are done with epidemiology and communicable infection. Now we are going to have a deep look at epidemiologic terms, the endemic, epidemic, and pandemic. And at the end, as usual, we'll review the lecture. Endemic. It is a word derived from Greek. It has got two words in it. First one, en, which means in English, and the second one, demic, it is derived from the Greek word demos, which means people in English. So, endemic describes a disease that is present permanently in a region, or an infection that is present at a low level in specific population. For example, dengue, chickenpox, and malaria. The diseases that occur in a country or a society on a constant basis. And these diseases may vary from country to country. For example, an infection that is endemic in China may not be endemic in Korea. An infection that is endemic in Korea may not be endemic in America. The next one is epidemic. This is a second epidemiologic term. It is also derived from Greek. It has also got two words in it. First one is epi, which means upon or above. Like these are professional words for on. And demic is also derived from Greek word that is demo, meaning people in English. Epidemic is an outbreak that affects many people at one time, and it can spread through one or several communities. An infection is epidemic if it occurs much more frequently than usual. Let me tell you a really cool fact about epidemic. Epidemic is not limited to infectious diseases like yellow fever, smallpox, measles, and polio, etc. It can also be applied to any scenario that increases health risks in a society. For example, obesity. Then we would use a specific term for obesity, and it will be obesity epidemic. Pandemic. You might be familiar with that term because of the COVID recently. It is also derived from Greek. The word pan means all, and demic derived from demos, which means people in English. So pandemic describes an epidemic when the spread is global. We would say that an infection or a disease is pandemic if it has a worldwide distribution. It affects a large percent of population, for example, COVID, the coronavirus disease. In many cases, the cause is a new strain of a long dormant virus. Due to the lack of immunity, it spreads quickly in humans, and there is a high mortality rate for pandemics. Social disruption, unrest, and economic loss often result from controlling the spread of disease. Alright guys, let's review the lecture. Communicable infection is an infection that spreads from host to host. Endemic is a disease that is present permanently in a region or a population. Epidemic is an outbreak that affects many people at one time, occurring more frequently and can spread through one or several communities. And pandemic is an epidemic when the spread is worldwide. Let me tell you something really important. Pandemics and epidemics describe the rate and distance of the disease spread, not its severity. That's it for today's video. I hope you got everything you wanted to get from this video, and if you've got any suggestions, feel free to leave them below in the comment section. And also, if you want to connect with me on my socials, I've got my Instagram, I've got my Twitter, and I really upload blogs, so do check them out. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.